All right, guys. Good morning. Dennis Karatov here. Welcome to a new episode of Submission Radio Morning After. It's a huge episode. I have a number of guests on this show, one making his debut that I'm super excited about. He absolute legend. Love hearing him break stuff down. He joins us here today. I'm going to introduce him in just a second. I just flew back from Perth. I feel like I'm going to die. Maybe I am dead, and this is like a great dream because of the great guests that are joining me here today. Just quickly, if you want to become a Submission Radio member, you can do so by hitting the Join Now button. If you want to ask questions, make sure to jump in the chat, super chat. We'll try to get to your questions as soon as we can. All right, I want to introduce the guests and get right into it. Oh, and by the way, joining us in about 20 minutes, we'll have Brett Okamoto jumping in as well. Good friend of mine. We'll see what he's doing. We'll see what kind of golf course he's coming from. We'll see what's going on with the George Clooney of MMA. But anyway, let's get into the show right now. First things first, I want to introduce this guest. He's debuting on the program. I've wanted to speak to him for a really long time. I actually had no idea how to get in touch with him. Then I saw Anthony Smith spoke to him. There was an Instagram account. And I was like, bang, I got to get this guy on ASAP. He's one of the most awesome breakdown guys in the game. Obviously, an epic career himself. He joins us here on the heels of UFC 320 after a strange UFC Perth, which we will get into. Didn't Thomas? Huh? Welcome here.
What's up, man?
How you feeling? I'm good now. How you doing, man?
I'm good, man. It's good to be here, and I'm glad to be debuting on your show, man. I'm hoping we can have a good time and chop it up and talk some good nonsense.
Oh, there's a lot of nonsense to talk to, especially after yesterday. There's a couple of things I got to get your guys' thoughts on. The next man, of course, Hot Take Kid, breaking it down. He's got a big live watch along this coming weekend, UFC 320 from Mike Heck's house. What do they get up to at that guy's house when they're watching the fights? I don't know. Probably partying. Jed Meshew, a little pre-party before the big party this weekend. Thanks for joining me here on Submission Radio.
Big D, I just want you to know, I love you, buddy, because if I didn't, I would not be here right now. Currently, I mean, the football slate is active. The Americans about to stage the most incredible comeback at Ryder Cup, and I'm putting all of that aside to come here and chop up UFC Perth with you. So feel special, Dennis, because only for you, my man. Only
man,
for you.
I feel like I'm riding the short bus on the way to the MMA on the way to the MMA event right now. That's how special I feel. And by the way, the only football we want to talk about is the AFL Grand Final, which the Brisbane Lions won over the weekend with a big performance from
Shout out to the Lions.
100,000 plus in Melbourne. Do you know much about that? AFL Australian.
I have no idea about that at all. But I respect it though. Respect, salute to them, gentlemen.
Hey, you know what? Snoop Dogg put on a good performance. I've seen him live a number of times. He's a great showman. And let me tell you guys something else. Speaking of great shows, just quickly, we'll talk about UFC 320 shortly, but I want to start with the UFC Perth. I flew in overnight. I wanted to kill myself, but I'm here. It was an interesting show. There were a number of things that happened throughout that week, which were controversial that I want to get to. Before we get into the show, guys, there are a number of people in Perth very passionate. One guy from JDM's gym, Brendan McCormick, who wanted me to make sure to tell everybody that the crowd was great, that it was packed, because he felt like people were kind of shitting on the crowd. And it's true. I got there at 6:30 in the morning. By 7 a.m., there were more people in that arena than usually like at an American fight card, because we all know people don't get there till the main event. The Perth fans rocked up at 7 a.m. after a huge Super Bowl the day before in the AFL. They were buying drinks. They were having beers. They were loud. They had to slash the prices. They got down to $49 because they wouldn't really sell. And the card lost a number of fighters, including Justin Taffer, who has canceled his fight after fight after fight. He had some personal problems, but this time he had to cut weight. He was like 114 kgs, and they had to take him away in an ambulance. So I don't know what his future is going to be. During the night, a number of weird situations happened. One of them I want to get into right now. Jake Matthews versus Neil Magny. Matthews calling out Magny over and over and over and over. And Magny, at 38 years old, looked like he may have been going out to Matthews' submission, only to then have the referee stop the fight with a couple of seconds to go, and Magny was fine. The referee then freaked out after waving off the fight and just continued the fight and then went into the next round. Matthews is now appealing the fight after Magny somehow turned things around and was able to submit him himself. Din, it is one of the strangest things I have ever seen in live. when it comes to watching fights. We were all confused. I was completely cage side with all the fans there, just wondering what the hell's going on. What is your thoughts on Matthews now having this appeal and this strange situation from the referee?
I do think he deserves an appeal, only because this. So I actually think that they should allow situations like this to be reviewed before they make a final decision on it. So if he wasn't going out and they stop it, if the standard was, okay, we're going to review this, and if he wasn't going out, then reset it. But because the standard is, if the referee stops a fight, that's it. This is what it is. And we've seen it before. We saw it before with numerous fighters, including Robbie Lawler against Ben Askren. I say that Robbie Lawler because I see Jed got the Lawler-Woodley poster behind him. But we've seen this before. And once the ref makes a decision, the standard is that's what it is. You can appeal it later. So I think he deserves an appeal. But I also think because of this and these situations like this, we should change the standard to being let there be a review process to say, okay, he was not going out, restart the fight. But because we don't have that in place, you have to stick with the initial decision and say, I would assume that the fight should have ended right there, and then let Neil Magny make an appeal based on the situation as opposed to what happened and just them panicking and Neil Magny making the decision and saying, hey, I'm not done yet. And then the ref panicking and saying, okay, well then let's restart it.
Jed, it's one of the weirder things we've seen. It's strange though, Jed, like for Matthews, he was calling out Magny regardless of this appeal, the way that this thing finished. Probably not the best look for him, the way that this fight ended up playing out.
It's obviously a strange situation. I think he's probably not going to have success if he does choose to appeal. And to me, this is one of those situations where I think by the letter of the law, maybe there's a case for it, right? Like, because the fight was stopped before the final horn, like theoretically that should have just immediately gone to be a no contest. I've seen that happen in other instances where a referee has errantly stopped a fight because of something like this. I think by the spirit of the law, we got this right? Like, it's not like this happened in the middle. It happened literally immediately before the final horn or the horn for the round ended. They were able to quickly sort of assess, okay, whoopsie daisies, I made an oopsie, but it wasn't a huge substantive change. It certainly is a difficulty for Jake Matthews, right, to think that you have won and then to have that sort of have to get re-engaged mentally. Like, I totally understand that. But I have a little less like even credence for that because it's not like he got finished in the subsequent round. Jake Matthews went out and won the second round on all three judges' scorecards. He was back in the fight, and then he lost in the final round because Neil Magny is a badass. Like Neil Magny this is a dude who is second all time in wins in the promotion. Top 4 or 5 with fights. Like he's been around. He is the definition of veteran savvy, and Jake Matthews did not stay locked in for 15 minutes. I'd be more okay. Like, I would be much more open to the idea that goof up made a huge change to the fight. If the next round Jake Matthews was spent, right? Like he had this big emotional dump, but he pretty comfortably won the second round. And so I'm like, maybe by the letter of the law, we could take this, but I think the spirit of the law, I think we ultimately got to the right result here. And even if it is a little wonky, mostly my takeaway from this fight is, dude, freaking Neil Magny. Shout out,
dude.
Man. Like,
Neil Magny, what is it? Like 20 something wins in the UFC, 35, 36 fights. I mean, you guys would have crossed paths through your careers, right?
Are you kidding me? I remember before he started fighting, he was on Tyron Woodley's. Speaking of Tyron Woodley, he's on back behind Jed. He was on Tyron Woodley's wrestling team. And then also one of my very last professional fights, he fought on the card as an amateur. So I've known Neil, and it was Ben Askren and Tyron Woodley's pro debut. Neil Magny was an amateur. I headlined the card. I've known Neil his entire career. And I've also went on record to state that I'm sick of these guys calling out Neil because, like, how good do you look calling out a 38-year-old guy? But then Neil continues to prove me wrong by still beating these guys that keep calling him out. So shout out to Neil for doing what he's doing. I'm hoping that he can still do work. And if the decision stands, I'm glad for Neil to get the win.
It's interesting. It's like you said, man, like Jake to lose to Neil, and then have to go through this appeal. Not the best look for him. Let's just quickly talk about the main event as well. Din, what did you make of Dominic Reyes against Carlos Olberg? I'll be honest, I didn't know what the hell was going on with Reyes last night. He came out, he looked off balance. He did all fight week. When I was talking to him, he was very strange. I had a thing where, I don't know, he would say stuff, but then he would get annoyed at the stuff that he said. I don't know. He was like acting strange. And then it's like he was trying to promote the fight, but then he was trying not to say anything. It's always frustrating when it's like that, because it's like, dude, yesterday you said this. And then it's like, oh, well, I didn't, like he kept flipping around. And then during the fight itself, I think he barely threw a shot, man. He just let Olberg get the distance. He let Olberg move in, and just Olberg took him out. He looked off balance.
No, I think that he's still haunted by the whole John Jones fiasco and what happened in that entire situation, in terms of this was his opportunity to rebound and get himself back in a title shot. And I think the idea of that just really was daunting to him. And he wasn't really able to get himself together and put himself in a place where he could just go out there and perform to the best of his ability, because he really felt, and a lot of people felt, he beat John Jones and he should have been the champ of the world. He loses that fight, and then he gets knocked out 3 fights in a row. And now he makes this miraculous comeback, knocks 3 guys out, puts himself in a position, goes out to Australia and just completely implodes. I think that it was a culmination of just mentally him just falling apart because of all of the stakes that were involved in this.
Jed, is that him imploding in your opinion?
It's hard to know. Like, I'm not in Dominic Reyes' head, so it's just really hard to know. I mostly attribute things like that to the other guy, because like Dominic Reyes has been on this incredible run, right? Like the redemption arc has been so spectacular for him that everybody was kind of rooting for him here too, to like, hey man, you were on the cusp of being the greatest what if in the history of the sport, maybe. And now you're back and on the cusp of title contention. I don't know. Well, you were obviously there, Dennis. So, and you talking about like how he was being a little weird fight week, that's information I don't have before. So I'm more open to the idea, because all I can see is that he seemed normal from what I saw in fight week. And, he talked about having these ideas and intentions coming into the cage, and then immediately Carlos Olberg made him uncomfortable. He took all the space away from the cage. He controlled the range. Dominic Reyes, that fight was a quicker version of what I kind of expected, because I thought Reyes would have issues closing that gap that Olberg is very good at setting, and would sort of get picked off as he got more and more desperate, but it happened so quickly. And I mostly just credit this as a phenomenal performance by Carlos Olberg, who, City Kickboxing, they're a terrific team. They appear to have scouted Dominic Reyes extremely well. They had a plan. Shout out to Dominic Cruz, who on commentary was, I thought, called this fight very, very well. And I've been critical of Cruz's commentary at points, but I thought he was spot on here, because he called it before the finish. He was like, look, every time Dom steps forward, Olberg slides out of distance, he is drawing him in. And that final finishing sequence was exactly that. He did a half slide out. Reyes got kind of caught in no man's land and then got fired on. And so I mostly just credit it to Carlos Olberg, who, maybe is the best light heavyweight in the world. We don't know yet. It seems like he's going to get his opportunity, but I just thought it was a really, really good performance from Olberg.
Dude,
yeah, and what I'm saying is I don't want to take anything away from Olberg, because sometimes it does seem like that when I do speak about the other guy and how he falls apart. But I've seen a lot of guys fall apart, but it does take the other guy's presence in order to make that happen.
Dude, I think you were spot on though, Din, because being there was something off with Reyes, and I think there is an intangible there that is impacting him in some kind of way when it comes to being so close to maybe getting to another title shot, like you said, with Olberg. And by the way, CKB 4 for 4 in one night, and they had a couple of new debutants as well. Like, these guys, I know sometimes we're critical about the fighting nerds because they lost a few. CKB still in the game, and now they got new fighters in there. Like, I was watching Eugene Behrman and Mike Angove and the team there doing their thing, just marveling at the fact that these guys are still able to do it at such a high level with so many fighters. Carlos Olberg, though, spoke to Hunter Campbell in the octagon as his fights finished, and it looks like he'll be flying over to UFC 320. It looks like he wants to be the backup for Ankalaev and Perera. Din, how much of a chance would you give Olberg against the current champion in Ankalaev if he was to slot in?
It's so hard to say. It's really difficult to say. Like, the things that he does well should give Ankalaev problem. Like, he moves so well. He's got a great understanding of distance and angles and being able to fire effective shots from those distance and angles. So you would think that if he can do that against the champ, that he would have some success. It's just that he's Ankalaev. He's so good at what he does. He's got a way of just shutting guys down. I mean, and his record speaks for that. So it's tough to say how much of a chance that I would give Olberg. If I were to put a line on it, I'd still say that Ankalaev would win. But Olberg does have the tools in order to deal with it if he was able to put it together.
Jed, do you think he's a more dangerous contender than potentially the winner of Yuri and Khalil this coming weekend?
No, probably not more dangerous. He's definitely different. I would favor Ankalaev because I've favored Ankalaev in basically all of his fights, because I think, like, he may not always be the flashiest, but this is a dude who was literally 1 second away against Paul Craig from being undefeated. And, you know, people, I honest to God, like, Paul Craig tapping him out in the literal last second is the difference between people being like, oh, this guy is one of the absolute best pound for pound fighters in the world. And he is so good at fighting very different fights when he needs to. He is so adaptable in a way that Carlos Olberg really isn't. Broadly, and Olberg we've seen sort of struggle against guys like Jan Blachowicz when they can be a little more defensively sound than Dominic Reyes is, who's never been like a great defensive fighter. I think Magman Ankalaev is would probably rather fight Carlos Olberg because Yuri Prochazka is a chaos merchant, and it's hard to fight dudes like that. Like, Alex Perera can, because he has the boomstick, right? Like, he is a uniquely bad matchup for Yuri. But like, if Yuri gets past Khalil, which is not a given, Khalil is a damn good fighter in his own right. Like, Yuri has a lot more problems to present than Olberg does. Not to say that Olberg doesn't have a chance, but if I was picking one that has a better chance, I would go Yuri.
Din, I got to find out from you, because obviously we've got the big main event coming up this weekend. Before you get going, I want to get your take. We've got Brett Okamoto coming on, so I'll bring you on in a second. But before you get going, Din, what is your feel on this main event? People on the plane leading home, a couple of coaches from the UFC were telling me they believe this is going to be a different Perera. Apparently, there were rumors around him, not taking this first fight seriously. This more serious version of Perera, how much more dangerous do you think he can actually be for Ankalaev? How much different do you think this rematch is actually?
I mean, they have been saying that, but I just don't know how much of a difference it is going to make, because you also have to take into account that for even Ankalaev fought him during Ramadan. So you also have to expect that maybe he wasn't even at 100%. Now, if you watch Ankalaev and Alexander Rakic, he was faster on his feet than he was against Perera. So I'm expecting him to actually come out and move a little bit better, and then probably even wrestle a little bit more and offer a little bit more. I am expecting Ankalaev to win this fight. I expect him to win this fight. I do think it'll be a different fight, but I do expect him to still pull out the victory.
All right. Are we still doing the trade, Din? Are we still doing Ditchova for Ankalaev if he beats Perera here?
No, so I
think that's a great trade. Don't back off that corner, Dean.
I'm certainly not going
back
back
off that.
But I want to clarify this, is that when I said it was 2 years ago when this guy was begging for a fight, right? He was running around going, oh, I want to fight the champ. I want to fight the champ. And then when you think about it, I go, man, it's not a knock on Ankalaev. It's actually, I thought it would be a compliment to say that let this guy go fight for $1 million because he'd win the tournaments over there. Also, too, is that Ditcheva would probably outsell anybody in the UFC if she came over and was knocking females out. There's just something about a female who can knock other females out that's going to sell. So it's not a knock on Ankalaev, even though that's the way it sounded. But I'm not going back off on that. Like, Ditcheva could come over and pretty much, if she's knocking females out, she'll outsell pretty much anybody in the UFC.
Mm. All right. Well, let me bring the next guest on. Brett Okamoto in the house. Look at this, looking cool, looking chill going into it. Din, as you go, people need to check out your podcast. I've got it down in the link below. Do you have anything you want to say to Brett? I know you guys have a shared history before you get going.
I know, man. Normally, I would try to trash Brett, but I miss him, and I want to be able to do more work with him, man. And I know with the ESPN going away, man, I'm probably not going to see him all that much, and that's kind of sad. But hopefully, as long as we can get on podcasts like this and catch up, man, hopefully we can do that more.
Well, of course, bro. And the first question I'm going to ask Ankalaev is how it feels to be disrespected by Dean Thomas and trade you away from the UFC. You finally win a championship, and Dean is trying to push you out of the door. That's why I'm going to ask this.
Well, I tell you what, though, if he loses, he's definitely getting traded.
All right, well, I appreciate you, Did. Thanks so much for joining me. Check out his new pod. It's in the link below, and we'll chat soon, man. What a great debut. All
right,
best.
fellas. Y'all be good, man. Peace.
Good seeing you, Dean. Later.
All right, Brett, you're in the action zone here with me and Jed. We were talking about Perth. Before we get off Perth, anything you wanted to mention? We were just talking about some of the craziness. I mentioned Tafa, some fights falling out, tickets getting slashed. I did say the fans were great. I did say that even though it was 6:30 in the morning, by 7 a.m., it was still pretty packed. Dave Shaw was like, I did ask Dave Shaw some questions afterwards. He gave me this is the highest UFC fight night in Australian history. Last one was in 2018 in Adelaide. So not exactly, the highest gate in Perth, but they had an angle for it.
Yeah, I think you guys probably covered it pretty well. You said what needed to be said about Perth. It was good. It was a good card for Olberg, man. I mean, I've kind of thought that the light heavyweight division has been pretty awful in recent years, and now all of a sudden, when you look at it, you're like, hey, actually, it's not that bad now. So, and if Dominic Reyes would have won and looked spectacular, that would have been a good storyline as well. But I think like this works out even better. Olberg looked every bit the part, man. He just looks so confident. He looks like the real deal. I don't know if he can beat the top. Then that's the question to find out, right? But it's nice to be able to talk to the light heavyweight division and not feel sad when you talk about it, because it was like that for a while. Even as Pereira was like the only good thing going on, and that's respect to Yuri Prohaska and all those other guys. The very, very, very top, great. But it had been a little bit weak beyond that. So,
dude, 100%. I mean, at one point, I remember I kept telling Robert Whittaker just to move up. I think it was around the time like Jamal Hill was the champ, because I was like, dude, just have a crack. Honestly, like,
you can get
if
one.
you lose, it doesn't matter, because the people are still going to think you're a middleweight, and if you win, good stuff, And by the way, there's an interview with him coming out in half an hour on the channel where I go through the whole 205 division with him, because potentially, I don't know, maybe he will move up in the fight. So shout out to him. He was on the analyst desk and he did a great job. Jed, is 205 still the weakest division now with what's happening with Olberg? We've got Erie and Khalil back sort of in motion. Ankalaev-Pereira. What do you think?
No, 205 is never the weakest division. Heavyweight still exists.
That's right. Yeah.
And also women's bantamweight still exists.
Yeah.
So it was not the weakest division. It's the third weakest division behind those two, assuming we're also not going to pretend that women's featherweight is a real weight class. It's still that. It's great that Olberg came alive, right? Like, because he was probably supposed to fight for the belt after his last fight, but the issue is nobody has ever fought Jan Blachowicz and looked good. It's just impossible to look good against Jan Blachowicz, and so he fought that and was like, well, we can't throw him in a title fight now. And now he's done it. He has looked good. He has cemented. I don't know if he's next for the title, but his next fight is for the belt, and he is a fresh person, which is always a good thing. So I will say there's a little more juice, just because Brett is right. Like, it was the Alex Pereira show, and it seems like we are very close to moving past that. And, I don't know how much legs the division has for like long term, but it's nice to get a new viable contender, which is what Carlos Olberg is. We need like 6 more for this weight class to be like, middleweight was really bad like 2 years ago, and then now middleweight is just hot. We need some more Carlos Olbergs to come along to get 205 into a good place.
And by the way, Ankalaev, him and Jan, he didn't look great with that fight either, right?
Nobody has ever good fighting.
No one has ever, been able to figure it out.
The only dude. It's the only dude who made Jan look easy work.
That's right. And, speaking of Glover, so they look loaded up. They look ready to go, Brett. I want to go to you first, man. New version of Alex Pereira. They're having weird fights in the hotel lobby over Google Translate. It's got to be one of the dumbest things I've ever seen in my entire life, where both guys are just like standing there with their hands on their hips going blah, 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 blah. It's like, and then waiting to hear what Google has to say. And then like, come on, guys, let's move it along here. But I am hearing Pereira's been locked in for this one. I keep hearing he was partying. He wasn't focused. He was injured going into the first fight. Realistically, knowing what you know with him being locked in like this, how different do you think this rematch looks?
I think it has the potential to look very different. I mean, there are rumors in terms of how locked in he was ahead of the first one, but I think like even if you push aside those rumors and let's assume that he was as good as he could be given any kind of circumstances, he was still fighting so frequently. Ankalaev, I mean, we just see this with every champion. I mean, again, set aside everything that you're hearing on the side, which I think that there is some truth to and some merit to, but even just you see this with champions, especially active champions like he was, that he was running through the gauntlet and just taking on all of these things onto his plate, headlining UFC 300, stepping in for Conor McGregor. There is a burnout factor. There is always a burnout factor. And it doesn't matter if you come from a kickboxing background where you're used to fighting every 2 weeks, eventually it comes for you, especially because of the media. And this guy had kind of blown up in terms of star power, especially over the year that he had with the things I just mentioned, with the knockouts and the headlining the cards. So I think a bad performance was coming at some point for Ankalaev-Pereira. I think it would be superhuman to think that it wasn't coming, especially the fact that he was fighting injured all the time. And now he's kind of confirmed that he was injured on the first one. And it's just, you have had a break now. I'm with you. I think that the Google Translate beef, if you're having to go there and say, I mean, it's kind of funny, but at the same time, it's like, what are we doing? It feels a little forced a little bit. But I will say, I feel like I've become kind of a reader of body language and animosity and whether something is real or not. I think Ankalaev-Pereira is annoyed with Ankalaev. I think he is motivated. He does look like a guy who really would like to win a fight this weekend. So I'm expecting the fight to be a little different just in terms of Pereira's performance, whether or not we see a different result. Obviously that's why we tune in, but I do think he'll be a little bit better version than he was last time because it's just the circumstances, black and white. It wasn't great circumstances for him last time.
Huge stakes on the line here, not only for Perera, but I think even for the UFC. Perera is such a big name. If he can pick up the win here, get his title back, I think he's right back in there, that superstardom where you can kind of throw him in there. And I think if you're UFC from there, you have to be strategic. Jed, if he goes out there and loses to Ankalaev in similar fashion, how much does it hurt him? Where does it put him, in your opinion?
I think this fight is stupid, and I've made no bones about that. I think this fight is very silly for the simple reason that I do not think a win or a loss matters at all. Because if he wins, we can do Carlos-Olberg versus Alex Pereira. Why are we doing that? Who is like that excited? Just he lost and he should have immediately moved up to heavyweight. The same as when he lost to Izzy and he moved up to light heavyweight. Like that doesn't mean he has to go up and fight Tom. He could have gone up and fought Derek Lewis, and the same way he went up and fought Jan Blachowicz, right? Like if he wins and then fights Carlos-Olberg, that feels like a massive waste to me of like, what are we doing here? And if he loses, then he should absolutely move up. So why are we doing this at all? Like that is outside of him wanting to do this because he thinks he shouldn't have lost which is like, okay, I guess, but like, I just do not understand why this fight is happening. The future is not Alex Pereira, the long reigning light heavyweight champion. He has limited fights left in his career. He is getting old. Heavyweight is worse than light heavyweight. It needs the bump. I want to go watch Poatan fight Derek Lewis. That is what should be happening. And win, lose, or draw on next Saturday. That is where we should be moving next.
Yeah, Brett, does Jed have a point here? I mean, at the end of the day, Yuri and Khalil are on the same card. You could have easily maybe thrown one of them in there against Ankalaev, maybe Olberg. Like, is Perera? Are we kind of risking this whole Perera thing by making him potentially lose again, but to Ankalaev this weekend in a fight that a lot of fans maybe aren't that excited about?
Yeah, I was saying exactly what Jed was saying before, but I was always with one caveat, and that is like, how many more fights does Alex think he has left? Because that's the one thing that makes this fight make sense. Because if he has a short amount of fights left, which I think most of us presume that he is, given his age and his the mileage on his career, then this fight makes no sense because it's not really a rematch that fans were clamoring for. If he wins, is it this giant, redemption story? Not really. It's not. This is kind of still a footnote on Alex Pereira's storied career if he comes back and beats Magomed Ankalaev. But if he intends to still fight for 4 or 5 years, which sounds crazy, but in the heavyweight division, you can fight into your 40s. We've seen it and have great success there. Then that chapter is still waiting for him. And so then this does kind of make more sense. It doesn't make the most sense in the world. But again, if you're operating from the idea that there's still time on Pereira's career, then yes, this makes sense. Let him stay at 205. Let him try to redeem that loss. Let him defend the belt a couple more times, because when you have a lot of fight left, then you don't have to, think so much about each individual fight because there's still plenty of them. If Pereira was moving up to heavyweight and fighting Aspinall in Abu Dhabi instead of this fight, I think we'd be talking about it a lot more. I think the sports world would be paying a lot closer attention to it. So Jed is absolutely correct in that was the biggest fight to make. And that's the fight that I was really hoping for, even for the sake of Tom Aspinall, because Tom deserves something after John dragged us around for a year. He deserved an exciting matchup, and we would have been losing our minds about Pereira. But if Pereira has years left in the sport, then throwing him up there to Tom Aspinall, which he faces great stylistic and physical disadvantages, and then what happens to him if he goes up and loses to Tom Aspinall? So, again, I am in agreement with everything that Jed has said. In fact, I've said the exact same things. But if this guy feels like he has years left, which I think he probably does feel that way, then this does make sense, even though it doesn't feel like this big super fight rematch going into 320.
Jed, is Perera fighting for a chance to fight John Jones at heavyweight next, potentially, if he wins?
No, because they should they should book that fight. I said that previously too. It was like, I don't have any issues with how John ended his career if he had been honest about it, right? Like he wanted to fight Alex. Okay, fight Alex. Like, honestly, that fight made sense after Alex lost the belt. The two of them could just fight for some made up light heavyweight BMF belt, and that would have been fine. Nobody would have given a shit. People would have been pumped, and then as long as they weren't holding up the actual real titles of significance. And so, like, I think if he beats Ankalaev, it makes that not possible. But if he loses to Ankalaev, shit, have him fight John Jones at the UFC White House, right? Like, then John doesn't have to fight Tom Aspinall, who he super obviously does not want to fight. And that is massive, and people would. And the UFC White House doesn't need to be headlined by like actual title fights and things that matter, because it's a carnival show. So it kind of should just be a carnival show. So you put John versus Alex as the co-main event to Connor Chandler. That's like actually perfect for UFC White House. He needs to lose to Magomed Ankalaev. Is what, like, beating Magomed Ankalaev does not lead to any good outcomes. Lose. You shouldn't have been doing this anyway.
Brett, you were shaking your head there.
The only reason I'm shaking my head is because John Jones gets no favors, and I'm not really a petty person, but in this case, I'm petty. And John Jones got Stipe Miocic, retired Stipe Miocic in Madison Square Garden. We waited around and sat around for a year so that he could fight a retired Stipe Miocic, and so and then we sat around and waited for a year to tell him he was not going to fight Tom Aspinall, and that. You want to reward him by giving him Alex Pereira? No, he doesn't get that. I'm sorry. It's just like at some point, John doesn't really care about the MMA world, which I don't expect him to, okay? Like, he doesn't owe us anything, but at the same time, we don't owe him anything then. So don't give him Alex Pereira at the White House when he just wasted a year of our time and didn't give us the fight that he wants. If John Jones steps foot into an octagon again, it's against Tom Aspinall. And I don't care if Tom were to even slip on a banana peel and lose to Cyril Gane, then if John decides he wants to come back, okay, you fight a number one contender fight against Tom Aspinall. That is the only fight that John Jones is allowed to take in the UFC is Tom Aspinall.
Love it, Brett. I love it. Hey, quickly, on the co-main event title fight, we got Merab and Corey Sandhagen. Interesting one here. I'm actually really happy Corey took his time to get to this title shot, because I feel like this is the most dangerous, the most interesting, kind of the most popular version of Corey here. Jed, I'll go to you first here. Merab, undoubtedly just an absolute machine, but Corey is dangerous in transitions. He's very, very clever, very experienced, and I think he is hitting his prime and that experience level at the same time going into this fight. Are people overlooking him going into the Merab fight? Because everyone I've spoken to is like, nah, Merab's just going to beat him. Are they overlooking Corey here?
Nope. Corey Sandhagen is a very good fighter. Corey Sandhagen is a very smart fighter, right? Like he's a fighter who is going to overachieve in fights, and we saw the fight against Umar, right? But there's just like one really big issue, and it's that Corey Sandhagen is a human being, and human beings get tired, and Merab-Dvalishvili does not, and like it doesn't. He cheats. He is a cheater because he is not beholden to the same laws of thermodynamics that everyone else is, and that energy expenditure should make you. He just doesn't, and so it doesn't matter. Like Umar Nurmagomedov is a straight up better in almost every phase of fighting than Merab-Dvalishvili, and Merab beat his ass because Merab can go forever and Umar cannot, and like that was it. That was literally the difference. It's like, oh, when this is a technical fight, I'm winning. But now I'm tired and shit, you're still going. And that's it. Like I don't know how you solve for that. And Corey can have great ideas, and I'm sure he will because he's very smart. And he will probably hit the body a bunch and try and slow him down. And he is standing in the ocean punching back the waves. Merab is it's not always the most appealing watch for me personally, but you cannot deny his efficacy. I do not see a world where Corey Sandhagen, the way to beat Merab in my mind is you have to be incredibly hyper violent and catch him, because you're not winning a decision against that dude. And I don't think Corey's got that in him.
You see Corey catching him at all, Brett?
I see a possibility. I mean, I don't necessarily disagree with the points Jed's making, but to say you don't see a world, I mean, I've seen the world where Corey catches people. He is a violent guy, and he does have the ability to put people away. Is it hard at the very, very, very highest level? Of course, And what I loved about what you opened this with is that it is coming for the perfect time. I think for Corey, he's had kind of a longer road. But I think he was a guy who actually kind of needed it. He's an interesting guy because I don't think he has confidence problems, but he's talked about how he didn't show up against Aljamain Sterling, that was just mentally, that it was just a dud of a night for him. And then he even talked about when he fought Umar that he was thinking about Umar too much and that he had built him up too much in his head. And I don't think that's a confidence issue. I think that's an overthinking issue. I actually talked to his coach about that, and I was like, that came from me, not his coach, but I was like, is the guy just thinking too much? Because we know Corey is extremely cerebral, man. I mean, you watch his interview with the Joe Rogan, like you'll lose some sleep thinking about what those two thought about that night, that what those two talked about during that interview. And that's because he's just such a deep individual. So when you take a guy who's really smart and cerebral and he studies fights the way he does, Corey, I think maybe he can think too much, but he's going to be prepared. I think he's now he's had these 5-round fights, so he is in the best place possible. But unfortunately, so is Merab, because Merab was a little bit chaotic and a little bit easier to catch, I think, earlier in his career, even just 3-4 fights ago. But I got to give credit to John Wood, and I'll be fully honest. I'm biased. I like John Wood. He's right here in Las Vegas, but they have really cleaned him up, and you've seen that in like the O'Malley fights. I thought O'Malley had a chance to catch Merab. I mean, really, what we're asking about Corey is the same thing that we were asking about Sean. Is that like, can a long guy who can maybe get up from these takedowns find an opening and knock him down, knock him out? Because that is how you're going to beat Merab. I thought Sean had an opportunity to do that, and Merab blew him out of the water in the second fight. So, unfortunately for Corey, I think he's running into a guy who has really cleaned up his holes, who has not just relied on that superhuman cardio, that he has looked at his flaws and he's really cleaned them up. I still give Corey a chance. I really do. But it's of course going to be tough. I mean, Merab, on any given night, you could say he's the number 1 pound for pound in the world.
I really like what Corey's been doing as well in terms of the way that he's been doing the skits. I like the stuff that he does with Oscar Willis. I think he's such an interesting dude. I think if he wins the belt, he'd be a very interesting champion. I feel like fans are really getting to know him. I think he's a very cool dude. He has his work cut out for him, like you said, Jed. And I don't think fans are really expecting much, but maybe in those situations, you can overachieve and surprise people. Let's see what happens this weekend. Of course, we got Yuri and Khalil as well. And that's going to happen. That's going to be an absolute train wreck. And I know you guys are expecting that as well. Quickly, before we wrap up, I got a couple of pieces of business I want to get to as well. While I was in Perth, picked up a couple of nuggets from a few of the boys I want to get your thoughts on. First things first, Alex Volkanovski. Have a look at this, fellas. If you didn't see this, caught up with Alex briefly at an Engage party. By the way, congratulations to Engage. They're now at Universal Store here in Australia. Make sure to go check them out. Congratulations to Ash and the team. This is what he had to say about Mosa actually potentially not.
You still feel like that's the month, and do you still feel like Murphy is the next guy for you after the Silva Lopez fight?
I mean, it's hard. Like I thought that was what it was going to be, but there might be a spanner in the works.
Yeah, because obviously February, Sydney. Would you rather wait a little bit longer?
February in Sydney.
Yeah.
Is it a February?
Well, there you go.
Breaking news to him. Look at you go.
That's right. I'm telling him what's happening. Brett, not Murphy, apparently, according to Volk. Got everybody thinking what it could be. Give me your sort of scenario that you think he's talking about.
Well, I think on the heels of that, then Murphy came out and said, well, maybe it's still me, but it's just a different date. I don't know, man. This whole time I've kind of thought that it was Murphy. I never really thought the Yair thing made a ton of sense.
Nah, not Yair. God.
Diego.
Give it to Movsar. Let this sport be honest one goddamn time.
And you know, Alex wants that. Volkanovski wants Mosar.
Does.
I want Mosar, but we're purists, man. I mean, we ain't Paramount's looking for big fights, man. They're not looking for Mosar Evloev in the first quarter of their big $7.7 billion deal. So I don't know. I would still say Lerone Murphy's the favorite, but to be honest with you, I got no inside information on this one. I thought it was going to be Lerone Murphy in December. I truly did, along with basically everybody else, but it does not seem like that's the case.
I've had some crazy stuff in the back end that I can't really reveal, but surely it's not true. And surely Diego Lopez and Yair is the next fight to make. Surely that's what you do in the meantime. Come on, the UFC. Come on, just make that fight.
What are we doing?
But Jed, like it's Mosa, you reckon? That's the guy instead of Murphy? I mean, who else could it really be?
I mean, I would still assume it's Lerone Murphy. And you know, to Brett's point or to Larone's point, I guess, you know, maybe it's just at a different date. He shouldn't, right? Like, I don't have any issues if he gets it. I want to be very clear about that. But like beating Aaron Pico, who was not ranked and, you know, is a good fighter, but doesn't really have any good wins, even as spectacular as he did, it's not like that shouldn't get you over for a title fight. Circumstances are what they are, though. Movsar is the undeniable most deserving guy, right? Like, Alex should have fought Movsar for the vacant belt. They didn't because this is business, and we understand the reasons. But Movsar beat Diego Lopez. Diego got to fight for the belt. Movsar might be the best featherweight on earth. And more than anything, I need those two to fight to figure out if Alex still has the juice. Because, yes, he beat Diego Lopez, and that's a great win. Diego Lopez was not the best featherweight on earth, and Alex isn't really, but Topuria left. And so I need, when a vacant fight happens, you need the two best guys, and we haven't got that. And so I hope desperately that the spanner in the works is somehow the MMA gods have deemed Movsar Evloev finally gets his day in court. And I think Alexander Volkanovski can absolutely beat Movsar Evloev, but I just want to see it. I'd still probably lean that it still is just Lerone Murphy because the momentum seems to be behind Murphy right now.
By the way, as Dave Shaw after Perth about Sydney, he's like, we don't know. We might come back to a city. It's like, dude, you had like 3 fighters talking about fighting in Sydney on your broadcast. Can we at least like confirm it? It's a little bit easier for media when you confirm a card, when you got Jimmy Crute, Robert Whittaker, and others on the broadcast telling everyone how they want to fight in Sydney in February. And they're like, well, we don't know. We'll have to wait and see. It's such like a UFC thing. Hey, just quickly, another piece of business that I got to caught up with my friend Izzy over there as well. Looks like he's over the Strickland fight. This is what he had to say.
Wanting this rematch at all with you?
I mean, I'm not surprised. You know, look, if you want to get something done right, do it right the first time. That's the lesson I learned. And he's doing other things in his own life. You know, he's made the money he wanted to make. But again, me as well.
I don't want to be waiting around. I've moved on. I just want to fight. So I will fight. We'll see. We'll see. I just want to fight, but we'll see.
So almost kind of revealing there's something in the works. And by the way, Hunter Campbell on the ground, I saw him. He was talking with a number of fighters from Robert Whittaker. Obviously, he was meeting with Alex, Izzy, Dan was still waiting on that announcement. I think there's a number of big pieces of business just around the corner. But Brett, there you had it. Israel moving on from Sean Strickland, kind of being a little bit, giving us a couple of clues there as well that he wants to fight soon. Looks like he already has a name in his mind, couldn't reveal. Who do you think this person is actually going to be next for Israel?
Well, let me pull up the rankings. I thought we were going to talk about Sean turning down the fight, which I don't understand.
Did he turn down the fight? Did he turn down the fight? Do you think that's what he's saying? Like, I don't understand.
I can't say for sure whether or not it was ever actually offered to him, but I do know that they weren't all that interested in it. Which,
well, he never spoke about it. He never spoke about it, right? Like, he never mentioned, I want Izzy in a rematch in December.
And he didn't. Him and his team didn't want him. And I think, in some respects, you get it. Like, it's hard. Like, you already went over and did it, and so to do it again, what do you get paid out? The fact that Izzy is on the decline, that his record shows. What do we get if we win? I can see those are pretty kind of generic reasons not to take a fight. I thought that because it's Izzy and just what that would mean, and some of the storyline that would go into it, and it's high profile, people would pay attention to it. It would be a chance for Izzy to get redemption, so that the attention might not be on you, but it's on the fight. I thought that they should have expressed some interest in that fight, just my own personal opinion, but I know that they weren't that interested in it. So if Izzy is going to fight somebody else, I got to be honest, I have no idea.
Okay, well, I've got a couple of names in my mind. Jed, do you want to throw a couple out?
So I saw your interview. I know one of the names you threw out. I'll let you throw that name out because I do think that kind of could make sense. I mean, I am with Brett. I think the Sean Strickland fight, I actually didn't love it just because like Izzy's lost 3 in a row and getting a chance to fight the number 3 dude in the world is just like, you might need to not do that right now. That's how things get stagnant, but it made so much sense to do it, right? For those 2 dudes to run it back. I think the Fluffy Hernandez fight, now that Fluffy is pulled out, makes sense, but I don't know. Are they boys? I can't remember if Izzy's boys with MVP or not. But if not,
yeah,
he's fight Michael Venom
boys with
they
him.
are boys.
Nah,
okay,
boys,
that would be the one. That would be the one.
Yeah, I can't. I just couldn't remember if they're like
yeah.
friends or not. So
they're friends.
Then, honest to God,
and him and Rob are friends as well. I wanted to see a
Yeah.
third Rob Whittaker fight. Like, I thought that could be
people
fun.
wanted that, but
they're friends as well. And they're not gonna fight
yeah,
either.
and I'm good with them being done with that. Honestly, if I'm in Izzy's camp and just as a fan, what is he? Move to 205. I don't need you to fight these dudes that you fought a bunch of, and just like go up and fight. Like, you're telling me you wouldn't lock in for Yuri versus Izzy? I sure as shit would. That'd be cool as hell.
Yeah, that's cool. And I also think like you got your Paulo Costas out there. That could be like a fun fight.
Never run that fight again.
No, do you do like a Shara Bullet one maybe for Izzy? I want to see Izzy get someone who. I want to have fun with Izzy. I think Izzy, he was talking about starting a DJ career. I know he's still focused on fighting. He looks like he's, getting back in the zone, but I just want to see him have some fun fights. We don't need to see him go out there.
You're right. I think you're right. Paulo, man. I think it's Costa because you're absolutely right. Like, what name are we going to throw out there? Kyle Bohio? Like, what are we going to see? Izzy fight Kyle Bohio? Like, why? And that's why the Strickland fight actually made sense. It wasn't perfect. But that was kind of like the start of the decline, right? But I don't need to see him fight it. Like Fluffy Hernandez, when you throw that out there, I don't need to see that. And even Michael Page, kind of, but I don't really need to see it. So I think you're right, Dennis. Just go pure fun, and that's Paulo Costa, I think.
No, pure fun is 205. Khalil Roundtree, Yuri Prochazka, Dom Reyes, like that's pure fun. Let's have some real fun with Izzy.
Well,
all right, last piece of business here. What about this fiasco over here with Vanderlei Silva? Did you guys see this?
Oh,
what a mess.
God, dude.
Look at this. And then him getting knocked out. So initially he headbutted his opponent, and then Vanderlei Silva getting knocked out like this in some crazy Spartan thing in Brazil, I think it was. Absolutely brutal stuff there. Brett, what was your reaction when you saw the shocking nature? They had to drag Vanderlei Silva out of there, like by his arms. He looked like he was dead in that situation.
Dude, he looks
man.
bad in the post fight. They're I think Verdum posted about it. Him in the hospital. He looks tough.
Far out.
What other thoughts can you have on it other than it's just awful, man? It just is unfortunate reality of this sport that, like, seeing some guy get knocked out unconscious at age 50 in some boxing ring, it was like, we haven't seen him in 7 years. We're not even all that surprised. Like, it's just gross. I don't know what else to say about it, man. But unfortunately, it happens all the time, and it'll continue to happen. We'll be talking about whoever turns 50 10 years from now is getting knocked out in a boxing match. It just happens, man. I mean, these guys need money, or they have a hard time letting go of the fame. It's sad.
I mean, Jed, we've got Mike Tyson versus Floyd Mayweather. He's going to be 60. We've got Jake Paul versus Tank, which is just like...
I like that fight. I know people hate it. I actually think
You like it?
I think it's great. I mean, it's really bad if you're a
boxer. He was
boxer.
trying to duck down so they could get them in the same photo because he's so much bigger. And
I want to be
doesn't
clear.
even know when they're fighting.
I think it's really bad if you're a boxing fan and Tank did, like, this is shameful from Tank. I think that this is deeply funny and a total barnyard freak show fight. And so I'm kind of into it. My only issue is that, like, I don't like Jake Paul as a human, and I don't like that Jake Paul is, like, making this something it's not. He should be he's just annoying, but I do like that it's a very stupid fight. I think it's quite funny. The Vandy fight sucks, but it sucked heading into it. This whole thing is wild because I don't know if you watched the actual stuff, Dennis. Like, I was watching it as it happened. His opponent won via disqualification before Vanderlei got knocked out and was, sitting on the ring, cheering as if he had just won the Super Bowl, right? Like, because Vanderlei got DQ'd because Vanderlei, outside of the headbutt, was also just like brazenly cheating. And at one point was punching through the referee. Like, the ref was trying to, like, break them up, and it was like, no. Yeah. It was an absolute carnival. And then the thing happened and Vanderlei got slapped. And Brett's right. Like, the only reasonable reaction is, this is a guy who earlier this year sent an email or a letter to the judge in the I can't think of the word right now, of the lawsuit, being like, hey, I'm having serious mental issues because of my long tenure in fighting, and this money will be substantive in helping me kind of process and overcome these issues. Let me go take some more very serious brain trauma. The post from this morning, he looks tough. It's really sad. Wish this wasn't the sport we live in, but it is.
It's a shocker out there, man. But anyway, we've got a good card coming up full of guys in their prime, 2 title shots, war. As we wrap up, just a couple of things from me. I want to shout out the good people of Perth. Man called Brett Bonetti. He's the big radio guy over there. Looked after me, took me out to dinner. Was so hospitable. Thank you so much. I actually watched the big football game at his house. And there's a couple of great guys in the scene as well. There's a guy he's the guy that asked the crazy, difficult questions at the press conference, Mitch from Australian MMA. He put out his own magazine here. I'll put the link below, putting his own money behind it. There's a lot of passionate young guys. Joel, I think audio fucked up for me, and one of the things just offered me up his audio. There's a lot of really gracious, nice guys on the scene here that I just wanted to shout out and say, hey, guys, I see your work. You're doing a great job. Thank you so much. Brett, what is happening for you this fight week, my friend? Busy times, UFC 320?
Same as usual, man. We'll do media day. We'll interview the top guys on the card. I'll have a couple stories come out post-show, as we talked about, ESPN, down to the end of the wire. So
yeah, how do you feel about that, man?
I mean, of course it's disappointing in some ways. It's the staff that's going to be working around the sport is going to be smaller. I'm going to figure out like my next move, whether it's at ESPN or somewhere else. I imagine I'll probably stay at ESPN. I love ESPN. I've loved working there. Mm-hmm. I know there's been a lot of speculation as to whether or not they're going to ignore the sport. They're not. So that's great to hear, just because it's obviously a sport that I love. And
ESPN still got PFL. Come on.
PFL, baby.
True.
Co-leaders.
Home of the PFL.
Co-leaders.
It's a bummer, man. As you know, when ESPN has the rights to something, there's a good large staff involved. A lot of people I've worked with that are going to move on to either other companies or other sports. But it was 7 years, a lot of fun, and I'm obviously going to stick around the sport. I love it. But I won't get to host the ESPN Plus post show anymore, which is too bad because that's a lot of fun. You know, when I'm up there with Chael and Anthony Smith and whoever. We bring on a lot of different rotating analysts. It's fun, man. It's fun to sit up there on the desk and talk about fights right after they happen. So I will miss that, but I'll still be around the sport, of course.
Dude, I love that show. It's one of my favorite parts of after the fight. So I can't wait to see what happens next. But of course, this week you guys get to watch Brett do his thing. And Jed, you are going to be at Mike Heck's house doing the watch along. You guys doing like a pre-show, people's pre-show, the pre-show for the pre-show, the pre-show for the pre-show.
Yeah, all the same stuff. And PFL on Friday, cover for that.
Yeah, Hughes
as well.
Hughes versus Usman.
I know people might not know it because the PFL is very bad at promoting their biggest events.
Yeah,
but that is happening this Friday. Biggest fight, the best fights they can make are happening. It's an objectively good card, and I haven't heard much about it. So for all of you watching, now normal coverage should be a good time.
Yep. And on my channel, obviously, chat with Robert Whittaker dropping in a couple of minutes. And speaking of PFL, Dan Hardy, how about this, guys? I'm going to get him on. We'll preview UFC 320, and then let's talk about a little bit PFL. Also, a couple of other coverage notes as well throughout the week, guys. Thank you. That is it for us here on Submission Radio Morning After. I want to thank Brett Okamoto, Jed Meshew, Din Thomas for coming on early. I want to thank you guys for joining us. We'll catch you guys next time. Enjoy UFC 320 and PFL Fight Week.